Hello, everybody. Welcome to Russ Reels Live. So glad to be with you today. Today has been an outstanding online day. Man, oh man, I have been going from one thing to the next. I even slipped in an in-person meeting today already, which was awesome. I got to start off this morning on the Experience Live with Russ and Scott, which was great with Justin Guarini and Raquel Boris. That was a super great show. So many of you jumped in, said hi, love that. And then I was able to go to an actual chamber networking meeting locally and meet some people live and in person, which was tons of fun. And then I got to bounce to Usama's show, Be Strong 99 in Cyprus at 10 a.m. my time, Pacific Daylight Time. And now they saved the best for last. It is Russ Reels Live, and it's with my great friends and guests and authors. Steve Sullivan and Thom Singer are with me today, and I'm really, really excited about being able to talk to them about their books and about what's going on in their lives. And it's going to be great. I just wanted to remind you, for those of you who may not know who I am, and I'm sure there's a lot of you out there. So let me tell you, Russ Hedge, I am an inspiration specialist. I am a coach, motivational speaker. I love to connect with people. The best way to connect with me is russhedge.com. That's right, russhedge.com. I can even probably put that up on the screen to make it even easier. There we go, russhedge.com. And you can connect directly with me via Zoom and put time on my calendar, or go to any of my social media, my email, give me a call on my phone even. It's all right there for you. And I love to connect. So please do that. Also, just want to remind you, I'm the author of Befuddled, Live the Life You Choose. So trying to live up to my guests today. And I wrote a book that's available on Amazon and all online booksellers. So if you get a chance to pick that up, that would be awesome. But today I really want to focus in on my guests and all the great things they have going on. We're going to start with Steve today. I'm going to bring him in the house and make sure that we're all ready to go. There we go. Hey, Steve, how's it going?
It's going great, Russ. Hey, what I want to know is, since Hazel Bake Shop is sponsoring this, are they going to send some goodies out? You know, a sponsor, it means there should be goodies from the establishment so we can taste them and eat them on the show.
There you go. And that is a wonderful idea. And yes, Hazella Bakery is the name, Hazella, and they are awesome. And yes, they give me stuff all the time. So I'll try to package some up and send it your way, Steve. They're awesome.
That would be great.
Yeah.
I'm a pastry lover.
Oh yeah, I'm telling you, they have great pastries and sandwiches. They are fabulous here in Lebanon, Oregon, on Main Street. That's a great name, Main Street. Tough to forget that one. So if you're ever in Lebanon, Oregon, there you go. You know where to go.
Yes, someday I hope
That's
to
it.
get there, because I love in-person meetings too and meetups. So if I can get there, I will come and meet up with you, Russ, and we'll have a great time talking.
I would love to do it. I would love to do it. Today, I really want to talk to you. We're talking apples and oranges today. So let's hear a little bit about your new book and about all the great things you got going on.
Thank you, Russ. It is exciting for me to be a first-time author and finally get my book published. You know, as an author, that writing the book is probably the easy part. It's getting it produced and published and out there marketed. There's all these other things that you don't really realize when you start your journey to write a book. You think, oh, I just want to get my thoughts out there. I want to encourage people. I want to, inspire people. And it's a production. It really is a production. But I am happy to be here to let people know that my book, Apples and Oranges on Your Team, Bite-Sized Stories for Life-Giving Leadership. And I titled my book that way because I love metaphors and using metaphors to get people to think outside the box. My book is not a how-to book on leadership. You can go buy those anywhere. So you're not, if you want a how-to book, don't buy my book. My book is a what if book. What if, as a leader, I did some of these things? What impact might I have on my team, on my relationships with others, whether it's work or home or in the community? Because we're all leaders in some way, shape, or another. Uh, Certainly, when I use the term leader, I use it in the broad category. But in terms of my own personal experience, I've had over 20 years in more like corporate official leadership positions that you often think of if you think of a business leader.
Well, I love what you're all about. I really do, Steve. It's amazing, this whole concept of what if. I mean, there are so many possibilities and opportunities in life, right? And as leaders, we're all leaders in one way or another, right? I mean, we're all leading the people around us. And
Mhm.
so give us a little bit more, and a little bit more snapshot about when this is. I mean, about a little snapshot of your book, and also tell us, is the book already been released or is it just coming out soon?
It's coming out soon.
Okay.
The book consists of over 30 short stories. So they're bite sized stories. They're things that you can easily read in less than 2 minutes. Um, and in fact, at the beginning of the book, I put a section in there how to use this book. And I encourage people to not read straight through it. I encourage leaders to almost use it like a meditation book or guide where they can read one story in the morning. Every story has a metaphor to open your eyes to think about the message that's related to that metaphor. And every story ends with a question. And so that question can prompt you to reflect on that story throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month. Um, and just go one by one by one. And it's 30 plus stories because the goal originally was, hey, to produce something that somebody could go through in a month. And it's not a big time commitment. Um, it's not one of these things where when you get to story number 25, you have to remember story one. Each story has its own message. And what I love in using metaphors is metaphors are like stories within stories. And so they help people solidify the message around an image so that they can remember that message just by
Right.
thinking of that image, whether it's a tree, a pearl, a flower, a box, a lamp, a candle. I use all sorts of things, real world things, as metaphors to draw out and tell my stories.
Well, imagery, I think, is so important. And, that's why a lot of times I think, people tell stories in their writing because it creates imagery. And obviously, you've created something that's really positive, showing people the possibilities of things they can do. I like the fact that the stories are standalone and the fact that they're in bite sized pieces. People like something short they can pick up and digest in a pretty short amount of time because we all have short attention spans. But I really love that. What was your first inspiration for doing the book?
It goes back 30 years, Russ. This has been a long journey where 30 years ago, I had this idea of writing these short stories that would present truth in a different way, in a story type of manner that would get people to think. And I started writing these short stories, and I wrote probably a dozen or so. And then in my busy life, being a leader, all the things I was doing, I just kind of shelved it and didn't pick it up for basically 30 years. And then in the last few years, I stumbled across them. And as you are aware, I produce a lot of content for LinkedIn. And when I stumbled across them, I thought, I think I could take one of these stories and use it to make social media content. And so I did. I put one out there under the hashtag Story Saturday.
Uh-huh.
And, it was an experiment. And the response was so positive that I kept doing it weekly. And in the 2.5 years that I've been doing Story Saturday, I've probably written 90 plus stories,
Wow.
of which this book is like the first series that's related largely to leadership. I've got a whole nother group of stories to package together that relates to strengths. And I'm in the middle of my third series now of working with values and telling stories again that emphasize things like different values people hold or different strengths people hold, and how do those show up in people's lives so that people who read those stories can be inspired by it, or they can even get a picture and say, oh yeah, that sounds like me.
Right,
So
right. Well, I think stories are definitely inspiring. And, I want to go ahead and bring in our next guest, Thom, who, we had some inspiring discussions, and he's been on one of my other live shows. And I just really appreciate Thom. And he's actually a multiple time author. Good morning, or hello, Thom. Good afternoon.
Hey, how are you?
Good. I just need to figure out what time of day it is. And I guess it's whatever part of the world you're in determines the time of day it is. But hey, you have been done so much in your life, and you have been a multiple time author. Tell us what inspired you to get into writing books.
Well, so I've written 12 books. Two of them have been big sellers. A couple of them were sort of niche books or projects I did with a co-author. But I got into it because I wanted to transition my career into being a professional speaker. And 15 years ago, when I had my eyes set on this, to climbing to these heights, everybody said, oh, you have to write a book. You have to write a book. And I learned two things. There are speakers who write books, and then there's authors who speak. And the reason that a lot of authors go out and speak is there's a lot more money in the speaking side, and it's also a way to promote the book. But a lot of speakers write books as a credibility tool. So that's sort of how I got into it. I was a speaker who wanted to write a book so that I would have sort of that credibility on my topic. And one book led to two led to three, and I ended up getting up to about 12 books. Now, I haven't written a book in about 4 or 5 years. And the reason for that is that I haven't really had anything stir inside of me that has been like the right thing. Plus, I've gotten really deep into my podcast the last 5 years, and I find that actually gets me more business than my books probably do.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up. Credibility. Originally, when I wrote my book, it was really, in my mind, was more credibility and content for speaking and coaching and all the things that I'm doing. It's been a real blessing to be able to do that. Plus, if you're not able to directly work with people or speak to them or whatever, it's a way to get out a little slice of you to other people. And you said a couple of your books were really, more successful than others. Which book did you want to really focus in on today?
So, while it's a little bit out of date because things have changed a lot, probably my most successful book is called Some Assembly Required: How to Make, Grow, and Keep Your Business Relationships. So it's about your brand, your network, your participation in the community. And then there's 3 other versions that I did with co-authors. There's Some Assembly Required: A Networking Guide for Women. There's Some Assembly Required: A Networking Guide for College Graduates. And Some Assembly Required: A Networking Guide for Real Estate. So that one book then became 4 books because I got a co-author who was an expert in each area, and we rewrote the content specifically for those verticals.
Yeah, I think that you can really niche that into audiences that need that. And, of course, the whole idea of networking and connecting with people in worldwide is a major topic. And people talk about that a lot. I know, Steve, that you are such a great networker as well. And I'm sure that's blessing you with this new book as you're getting that out there.
yeah, some people have commented and said to me, Steve, you've done a good job because you built an audience before you wrote your book. Some authors write their books and then they struggle to build the audience. But hey, I commend you, Thom. I aspire to be like you. I've got at least another dozen books in my list of books to write. And it's like, I think every month or so, another book comes into my mind. And so it's like, okay, add it to the list. I'll get to it someday.
I think we both could aspire to be like Thom. I've done one book and it's a lot of work. And so I completely, man, you said 12 books, right?
Yes.
Man, I mean, it takes a lot each one, the process that you have to go through. Did you find that some of those were easier than others? I guess the ones with the co-author were probably a little bit easier, but were some just easier to put out than others?
So the co-authored ones in the Some Assembly Required series, I just gave them the text and they rewrote all the stories for realtors or for women or for college grads. So that one I was more of the editor on. I wrote the original text and probably half of the text stayed the same when it transferred to the new book, but the stories changed from each expert. Then I have a series of books that I called airplane books because they were like 100 pages long. And this was before the short book was a popular thing. A decade ago, people were like, that's kind of a small book. Now you see these all the time.
Right.
Not that I created that trend, but I was ahead of the game. And those books were series that I wrote on my blog. So the first one, and this was probably, if not the bestseller, the second bestseller to Some Assembly Required, was called The ABCs of Networking. So A was for attitude, B was for brand, C was for creativity. They were a bunch of like 800 or 1,000 word essays all the way through the alphabet. So then we did the ABCs of legal marketing, the ABCs of entrepreneurship, the ABCs of attending a conference. So there was a series of books in that, and those were all just written as short blog posts that then my editor repositioned, because you write differently for a blog. You say things like click here or yesterday. And so the editor would fix it and make it more book-like, but they were just short essays that were compiled into the book.
Right. Well, I have a comment here from my co-host, D. Scott Smith. What a fabulous concept. He says, I don't know if you've had the chance to meet Scott, Tom, but Scott is all about networking too. He puts out a lot of networking context, and he is a motivational listener, is his title. Fabulous guy. The two of you have got to connect because he is all about networking. And yeah, I think that when you're talking about brand and content and all that you're putting out there, I see where you found it very interesting to go to the whole podcast live stream format. And Gabe was asking, what is the name of your podcast? So we need to know that.
So my personal podcast that I started 7 years ago is called Making Waves at C Level. C is in the letter C, like CEO, CIO, COO. And then I'm actually the paid host of 3 podcasts, 2 for associations and 1 for a company. So 2 that are in technology. And then the National Speakers Association, which I'm a super active member. We partnered to create a brand new show this year called Speakernomics. And so if anyone is in the speaking world where you make money with the spoken word, you should check out Speakernomics in addition to my own show, which is Making Waves at Sea Level.
Yes, I know I got that information from you, and I'm definitely going to do that. And that sounds super interesting. So Steve, hey, back to you. On the whole idea of leadership and networking, it's interesting because leaders really are good networkers. Leaders are out there connecting and making a difference in the world. And I'm guessing that some of your little short stories in there touch on that subject as well.
They do, because overall, those stories touch upon how to invest in people and leveraging your relationships with people for success. And yes, networking starts that whole ball, through meeting people and just getting to know them.
Right.
I love networking and have been complimented for my networking because I usually show up at networking without an agenda.
Right.
And I just go to listen to people. And people love to talk, especially if you will listen to them. And you don't have to hardly say anything at all. And by the end of the time of them talking with you, they think you're the best thing they've ever met, So Tom, I'm sure you can relate to that.
No, I want to add something to what Steve just said. One of the advice that I give my clients, I work a lot with law firms and accounting firms and other professional services. And these left brain professionals, they know that all their business comes from referrals. And then they get out there to network and they suck at it. And so I work with a lot of these types of companies. And one of the things I teach them is don't go into the networking event thinking, I'm going to meet a client or I need to meet someone who can help me. Instead, go in with the mindset that I can't leave here until I meet 3 people who I can introduce to other people. And so you got to meet people and you have to ask them, what's your biggest challenge? How do you get clients? What's the ideal client for you? And most people are going to tell you the answers to that. And you're like, wow, good luck with that. But every now and then at an event, you can find 2 or 3 people where you're like, oh my gosh, do you know Russ? Russ is like the perfect person for you. Would you mind if tomorrow I introduced you to Russ? And all of a sudden, if you go into networking events with that as your goal, in addition to what Steve just said about listening, you're going to find that you have more business coming your way than you know what to do with. But people are so short focused that they go in with an elevator pitch and they meet somebody. It'd be like, Steven, if I met you and I'm like, oh, and let's say that you were having an event and you hire speakers, and I'd be like, oh my God, Steve's choosing speakers for a big event. And I flicked a switch in my back and just was like, hi, my name is Thom Singer. I've written 12 books. I speak at conferences just like yours, blah, 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 just verbal vomit all over him. They want to run. The idea of the elevator pitch, most people would run when that elevator hits the lobby. So do what Steve says and listen, and then also look to be a connector, and you'll win.
Oh my goodness. I could not agree with that more. I think the people have the complete wrong mindset in meeting people. And they think it's all about me when you go into it. I have to do this. I have to do that. I have to talk about me. And it's not at all. It's all about the people that you meet. It's all about them. If Dale Carnegie says, if you want to be interesting, be interested. Be interested in other people, right? And listen to them like you guys are both talking about. Listen to other people. Show that you care about what they're involved in. If people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, right? That is a John Maxwell quote. It is so true. People, you can verbal vomit on them all day long and tell them how great you are. But if you don't care about what they are telling you, they're going to run as quickly as possible. It was my joke back when the day when I did route sales, I'd go to offices and I would say, if I ever walk in the door and you run to the back room and you close the door and say, tell them I'm not here, just shoot me now and put me out of my misery. Because I want you to come running from your office and give me a big hug and say, Russ, it's so great to see you, because we're not there to sell products and services to people. We're there to build connections and relationships, and the other part takes care of itself. And so I just think that's so vital what you just said there. It's so important to how you look at things and the mindset you go into it with. It's just, makes all the difference in the world.
Another way to look at this, I often approach leadership from a servant leadership model. And one of the major behaviors there is serve first, which, Thom, that's exactly what you're telling your clients to do, is to go serve first. And by serving others, you will build those key strategic relationships that will help you then be successful.
Yeah, that's just it. Building strategic relationships. And, really, just if you go into it, just like you said originally, Thom, if you go into it thinking about who can I meet to introduce to other people, how can I bless other people, you have an entirely different mindset. I just actually have a workshop that I just completed, and I have another one next week called Turn Cold Calling into Making Friends. Mm-hmm. And the whole concept of that workshop is change your whole mindset about running in the door trying to sell people. Everybody immediately knows if you're a salesperson by your language, by your body language, by the way you deal with them. Instead of doing that, just going to make friends, find common ground, change the way you approach people. And whether you're selling or whether you're just trying to build strategic relationships to build community, it just makes all the difference in the world.
It does, Russ. And I love what you just said about sales. A lot of people feel like they can't network because they weren't into sales.
Yeah.
That somehow a salesperson has a better handle of how to network than somebody like me who was never in sales. And in fact, I think that becomes my little secret power, because when I go into networking, I don't have a sales mantra or experience that's coming out naturally. It's just me being me, trying to get to know them and who they are.
Yep.
Right.
Steve, I fully agree, Steve. And the way I kind of got into this topic was throughout my career, I ended up working for like 3 or 4 companies that either went out of business or closed their offices in Austin, Texas, where I lived. And I was never fired. It was never my fault that the company went away. In a couple of cases, they tried to transfer me back to where their headquarters was, but I didn't want to leave Austin. And every time I got laid off, I had a new job within 2 weeks. Sometimes companies created positions for me because they heard I was on the market. And people started saying to me, wait a minute, Thom, you're the only person I know who gets laid off up. And how can you do that? And it was because when I had a job, I was connecting. When I'd hear about a job, I'd connect somebody else. Hey, Mary, are you interested in this job? And the more you did that, the more people wanted to come in and rescue you when I had some problems. And so that's the whole idea, is it's not just about what can I get now in the short term, but this whole idea of networking. It's why I call the first book Some Assembly Required, because you have to put the pieces together. It's like Christmas morning or a birthday or another holiday where you'd give a kid like a bicycle. And maybe you had this experience as a kid where you got a bike, or better yet, you gave your own kid a bike. That is a wow experience. But if that same kid walked into the living room and right there in front of them, there was 2 tires, a handlebar, a chain, and a seat strewn across the room, that wouldn't be a wow moment. In my house, that would have been daddy's a jerk. So you have to put those pieces together. If you want the wow of having a network that will lead you to more business and more opportunities and just a better life, you have to be putting the pieces together a long time ago.
Yeah. Well, that's just it. You create the opportunities. Something I mention when I talk about things in that workshop too is preparation in your life and in your job, whatever you're doing, in your networking and connecting. Before you walk into an office to ever talk to somebody, there's so much preparation and assembly you can do, so that when I walk into that office, I can say, I already know who Thom is. I already know what Thom does. I already know what Thom likes. And I've already got common ground. And you have actually assembled something that creates opportunity, makes it easier to connect with people. I just love that whole concept, Thom, and that all that you're about with your books, because it's so true. I mean, we are out there creating opportunities by assembling the pieces every day. It's by choices we make, choices we make every day in all that we do. So hey guys, you know what? I've already got to start wrapping things up because you guys are awesome. I could keep talking, but we are the time is drawing to a close. But I want to give you both a chance for a last word and to give all your contact information and book information. So Steve, let's start with you.
All right. The easiest way to connect with me is either through LinkedIn or my website, which is confidencerediscovered.com.
Okay.
And my book should be available, and you can order it from bookstores, or you can hopefully soon get it off of Amazon.
And would you be so kind as to put that information in the chat for the show here, and we'll make sure and get that out to everybody as well. And Thom, last word and contact. Go ahead.
So you can find information about me at thomsinger.com. That's THOMSINGER.com. All my books are available on Amazon, although a couple of them are out of print because they're a decade old. But usually there's still some floating around on Amazon. And then, like I said, my main focus is these different podcasts that I do. And for this audience, I would tell them to check out Making Waves at Sea Level. And for those people who are interested in a career as a paid professional speaker, you got to check out Speakernomics. It's the only podcast that's really designed to teach you how to make money and be a better speaker.
Awesome. Well, that's awesome. I'm definitely going there. I've got that stuff down, and that is on my list to do because I am very interested in that. And I just want to really thank you both. Thank you both for the value you added to me today. I learn things every time I have wonderful guests like you guys on, and I'm always doing my best to listen and take nuggets from what you are saying. And I'm going to get your book, Steve, coming out. And Thom, I'm going to be definitely looking at all of your books, as well as getting that information on Speakernomics, because I want to check out that podcast. That sounds awesome. So
does sound awesome.
So thanks, guys. I want to thank you both for being here today. And I'm going to wrap things up, send you out to the green room. I'll see you in just a minute. All right. If I click the right button, I'll be able to do it. Here we go. Okay. Live video. I love it. I love it. You know, I appreciate the blessing of the people I get to meet, the guests I get to have on for all of my live shows, because I am learning every day. I consider myself a lifelong learner. You've heard that term, but it's true. I mean, I'm learning and growing every day, and I try to learn from each guest, because I have got so far to go still. I'm 57 years young and still learning every day. And I love life. And I appreciate time with guests like Steve and Thom today. Please check out all their information. And both of you, please make sure that you've popped that information in the comments, and I'll make sure and get that out in the show notes. And I appreciate everybody for tuning in today. It's been a ton of fun, like always. Enjoy having you here. Appreciate you taking your time, because, I know your time is precious, and I just appreciate you dropping in today. So until we see you again, have a great day and a great life. We'll talk to you soon. All right. Bye-bye.